Ladies and gentlemen, while President Donald J. Trump just pulled off one of the most brilliant military operations in modern history, completely obliterating Iran's nuclear program in just a matter of days, California just did something unthinkable. In response to President Trump's greatest foreign policy win, California has declared a full-blown sanctuary emergency. And what they're doing with your tax dollars is going to leave you furious. Now, this isn't just defiance anymore. This is a coordinated attempt to undercut the president of the United States right from within our own borders. And the timing, right after Trump crushed Iran's enrichment capacity, secured a ceasefire, and made the world safer, California panics and tries to shelter illegal immigrants like they're a protected class. Why? Like, what are they hiding? What do they know that we don't? And why are taxpayer-funded programs being redirected to people fleeing federal law right as our enemies abroad are getting crushed? So mainstream media will not cover this. The intel leaks were bad enough, but now we've got U.S. cities behaving like they're like some rogue states or something like that, and the people are responding. The people who are really responsible for all of this, they feel like there's nobody watching, but we're going to expose every last one of them in today's video. So I'm going to break it all down for you guys. Trump's surgical strike on Iran's nuclear core, the treasonous leak that they tried to discredit it, and California's emergency response that's raising some serious national security alarms. So stick with me, because what I'm about to show you connects foreign warfare, leaked intel, and domestic sabotage like you've never seen before. And trust me, guys, you're going to understand why this is not just a California problem. Unfortunately, this is a battle for the soul of America. Now, of course, if you appreciate the daily news updates, please hit the like button and subscribe. So make no mistake, this will go down as arguably one of the most important moments in American history. While California was busy shielding illegal immigrants from deportation, trying to outmaneuver federal law enforcement, Donald J. Trump, he was halfway across the globe executing one of the boldest, most surgical military operations that the world has ever seen. So let me just go ahead and say this plainly. Iran's nuclear weapons program is no more. Over the course of just 12 days, Trump's administration, with precision, intelligence, and absolute strategic clarity, launched a calculated airstrike campaign that destroyed Iran's three most critical nuclear facilities. Not damaged, not delayed, destroyed. The sites, Isfahan, this is Iran's only known conversion facility, and without it, they can't even begin enriching uranium or turning it into a bomb material. You got Natanz, which held basically not one, but two enrichment reactors, one that's above ground and one that was buried deep underground. And of course, there's Fordow, or Fordow, however you pronounce it, the infamous fortified site that's buried into a mountain that once was thought to be untouchable. Well, that was proven wrong. That particular nuclear site was hit with 12, count them, 12 30,000-pound bunker busters. The result, Iran has no path to a nuclear weapon, not now, not for years. Now, here's what's truly masterful about this operation. It wasn't a forever war. It wasn't regime change. It wasn't a multi-year occupation or a political sideshow. It was a mission with a goal, executed to perfection, and then done. President Trump, he didn't wait for applause. He didn't escalate. He didn't drag us through something endless. He simply said, enough. You won't threaten America or our allies with nuclear terror. Not on my watch. 12 days later, the mission was complete. And then a ceasefire. Iran backed down. Israel paused. Trump stepped in, brokered the deal, and restored order in a region where everybody expected a full-scale war. And this wasn't some lucky accident. It was intentional. It was planned, okay? And it was textbook Trump, swift action, minimal cost, maximum result. Even President Trump's own envoy, Steve Witkoff, who was in the room for the intelligence briefings and the post-strike analysis, he said it best. He said he has an uncanny ability to know exactly when to push the button and when to pull out. Now, That's what leadership looks like. While past administrations sent troops into the desert for like 20 years, Trump used a dozen days and zero ground casualties to dismantle one of the greatest nuclear threats in the world. And now the world is watching, shocked, silent, and scrambling to understand how Trump pulled this thing off. But not everybody's happy. In fact, some people here at home are furious that this mission succeeded, believe it or not. So what do? They start leaking classified intel. They try to downplay the damage. They whisper to the media that Iran's program will bounce back soon, hoping to bury Trump's win before it takes root in the public's mind. Now, with rent, groceries, and bills going up, every dollar matters, right? Medicare is one of the biggest monthly expenses that seniors face, but it doesn't have to be. Nancy shared this powerful message with me the other day. She said, Chapter just saved me $600 a year. I'm 78 years old and paying $1,500 per month in rent. With this savings may help me to stay in my home. That really does warm my heart, and I really do appreciate you sharing that with me, Nancy. Leslie Taylor, she's saving $1,000 a year. Guys, Chapter compares all your options, not just a few, and helps you to find the best deal at no cost to you. So give our friends at Chapter a call, phone numbers down below, or hit them up on the website at askchapter.org/Ron. This isn't just about Medicare. This is about peace of mind. So President Trump delivers the impossible: 3 nuclear sites in Iran obliterated, a regional ceasefire secured, and 0 American boots left in the sand. Now, you would think that would be front page news, right? You would think even the critics would say, okay, that was bold, but it actually worked. But no. Instead, as soon as the dust settled in Iran, the leaks began. A so-called early intelligence assessment was suddenly handed to the media, not through a press conference, not through official channels, but through the shadows, leaked, planted, weaponized, however you want to call it. The claim that Trump exaggerated the damage, that Iran's nuclear program wasn't destroyed, just set back by a few months, that the U.S. had no real plan, that Trump just reacted emotionally. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, and if it does, it's because it's the same tired playbook that they've used for years. Undermine the win, question the motives, and when all else fails, leak and spin. And so here's what they're not telling you. Steve Witkoff, Trump's special presidential envoy, who was directly involved in the ceasefire negotiations, went public and shredded the entire report to pieces. He called it what it is: treasonous, outrageous, dangerous. That leak, in his words, could cost lives. So he laid it out crystal clear, guys. Isfahan, the conversion facility that turns raw uranium into bomb-ready material, it's gone. Natanz, 2 reactors, 1 hit by Israel, then finished off by the U.S., evaporated. Fordow, the crown jewel of Iran's enrichment program, 12 bunker busters, canopy breached, obliterated. And here's the kicker. Even if Iran somehow still had 90% enriched uranium hiding underground, it wouldn't matter, because without a conversion facility, they can't build a bomb. So in other words, the strike didn't just delay the program, it killed it. The mission wasn't a guess. It was a strategic kill shot. So why lie about it, right? Like, why leak? Ask yourself, who benefits from pretending Trump failed? Who needs you distracted while California collapses into panic mode? Because right after that leak hit the headlines, and, CNN, MSNBC, the usual suspects, right? California, led by Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, suddenly declared a sanctuary emergency. The timing? Rather suspicious, don't you think? The motive? Political survival. And the cover story? Well, that's what we need to talk about, because we are going to go ahead and peel back why California is using your tax dollars to shelter illegal immigrants from deportation, and how this ties directly into President Trump's most successful foreign policy strike since taking office. So while President Trump is securing peace in the Middle East, guess what California is busy doing over there? They're declaring a sanctuary emergency, not an emergency crisis, not a housing crisis, not a crime emergency, a sanctuary emergency. That's what they're calling it. And I want you to understand just how twisted this really is, because it's not just symbolic. It's not a virtue signal. This is full-blown policy warfare against the federal government, and it's being funded by your taxpayer dollars. So here's the backdrop. Ever since President Trump returned to office back in January, his administration has delivered on two major promises: secure the border and deport those here illegally. And guess what? It's working. As of the last DHS report, nearly 1 million undocumented immigrants have self-deported since Trump returned. That's right. They're not waiting for ICE agents to come knocking on their door. They're leaving voluntarily because they finally believe the law is being enforced again. Now, in any sane country, that would be seen as a massive win, a peaceful, lawful resolution to an out-of-control crisis. But not in California. California is special. So in California, the ruling class saw this wave of voluntary deportations and panicked. Why? Because a mass exodus of illegal residents means fewer people on the census, less federal money, less control of urban voting blocks, cracks in your economic underclass that fuels cheap labor. So what do? They declare an emergency. Not because people were being dragged out of their homes, not because there were ICE raids on every corner, but because illegal immigrants were choosing to leave on their own accord. That's the emergency. And so now, under the direction of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the Los Angeles City Council is preparing to vote on what they call an eviction moratorium. But here's the truth. It's not about evictions. It's a mass taxpayer-funded rent subsidy specifically for illegal immigrants designed to bribe them to stay in Los Angeles. You heard that right, guys. California is using your hard-earned dollars right now to pay for the rent of people who are not only here illegally, but who are actively avoiding federal law enforcement. They even use the phrase shelter in place, not because there's like some kind of a natural disaster or something like that, but because they don't want these individuals going outside and getting noticed by ICE. They're literally telling people, don't leave, we'll cover your bills, just hide from immigration. This isn't sanctuary. This is state-sponsored obstruction. And the unions are jumping in too. Groups like SEIU 721 and the Tenants Union, they're pushing the council to pass this immediately, claiming ICE activity is a public trauma. So one official even said this: you don't know who's a cop anymore. Anyone could be an ICE agent or a bounty hunter, just grabbing people off the streets. This is the level of hysteria being pushed by elected leaders, all to shield a population that has already started leaving on their own. This is not about compassion. It's not about safety. It's about control, power, and political survival. So, question is, why now? Why is California, of all of the issues that they could declare an emergency over, why are they all of a sudden pouring time, money, resources, political capital into keeping illegal immigrants from leaving? Well, here's the real answer, the one that they don't want to say out loud. They're not trying to save lives. They're trying to save votes. They're trying to protect the machine. Let's break it down. Los Angeles alone is estimated to be made up of 10 to 15% undocumented residents. So this means over 1 million people in that metro area are living there illegally. Yet they're still being counted for federal census data. They're through districting, public funding, and in many cases, indirect political influence. So if those people leave, California loses House seats. California loses federal education money. California loses Medicaid funds, HUD funds, block grants. You see the pattern here, right? And worst of all, from their perspective, California loses its leverage in national politics. So this isn't about morality. It's about mathematical panic. And the timing could not be any more worse for them, because just as Trump's administration has put immigration enforcement back in full gear and the number of self-deportations climbs by the week, the cities that once welcomed illegals with open arms, they're now trying to trap them with rent subsidies. Now, I want you to let that sink in. California, the state that once claimed to be a refuge of freedom, is now actively funding a system that encourages people to stay in hiding rather than return to their country voluntarily. So they're saying they say it's to protect from ICE raids, but there's no raid. There's no evidence, right? These people are leaving by choice because the federal government under President Trump has reinstated law and order. So what does California do? Well, they rebrand illegal presence as a public health crisis. Yeah. So they roll out their activist unions. They beg the city council to fast track protections. They turn eviction moratorium into code for federal resistance. And so here's the most telling part. The very same politicians who refuse to pay American citizens rent during lockdowns, they're now falling over themselves to pay rent for non-citizens just to stop them from leaving. That's not policy. That is desperation. And this isn't isolated to LA. Other progressive cities are watching very closely because if this tactic works in California, well, you can expect the same playbook to be used in other cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and beyond. They're scared, not because President Trump is rounding people up, but because his plan is working without force, because people are leaving voluntarily. And the system that they built on top of illegal labor, illegal housing, and illegal votes, it's starting to collapse. And if you think that the desperation stops here, well, then you really haven't seen anything yet. So let's zoom out for a second, okay? Because what we're witnessing right now, this is a tale of two Americas, right? So on the one side of America, you have President Trump cleaning up the global nuclear threat. He's forcing Iran and Israel to stand down. He's using strength, strategy, and speed to reestablish American dominance without a single new war. Now, on the other side, we got California, openly defying federal immigration law, fabricating emergencies, and using taxpayer money to bribe illegal immigrants to stay, even as the rest of the country tries to move forward. That is the contrast. That is the collision. One side's solving real problems. The other side is creating new ones to cling to power. So let's be honest. This didn't happen under Biden. Under Biden, we had weakness abroad and chaos at home. But now Trump is securing peace abroad, and the only chaos left is in the states that are still resisting him. Think about the optics right here, right now, right? While Trump is coordinating with global powers to eliminate nuclear threat, California is holding emergency city council meetings to protect people who broke into the country. While Trump is being praised by military leaders for precision strikes that avoided civilian casualties, LA's mayor, she's over there panicking over a voluntary migrant exodus. And while President Trump is telling Americans, you have your country back, Gavin Newsom is out here screaming, wait, don't leave, we'll pay for your rent, to people who are here illegally. So you really can't script this kind of absurdity. But you can recognize the pattern, can't you? Because here's what's really happening. The Trump administration is winning. America is waking up, and the blue state strongholds, they're starting to fracture. The policies that once looked progressive are now being exposed for what they really are. They're desperate moves to hold on to control in cities that are built on unstable systems. Sanctuary policies were never about compassion. They were about leverage. They were about power, census counts, gerrymandering, voter blocks, cheap labor, political messaging, all that nonsense. But now, with real immigration enforcement back and Trump's popularity rising, that house of cards is starting to shake. And what we're watching in California is what collapse looks like in real time. But this isn't about LA. This isn't about sanctuary cities. This is about a nation divided between those who are fighting for law and leadership and those who are doubling down on chaos and defiance. And that brings me to the final piece of the puzzle here. So trust me, what is coming next will define the future of our country, guys. All right. So now you know what California is doing. You've already seen how they've essentially twisted an immigration wave into an emergency. You've actually also seen how they've tried to bury President Trump's greatest foreign policy success under a pile of fear, lies, and rent subsidies. But here's the question every American should be asking themselves right now. What happens next? Because President Trump, he's not just going to sit back and let sanctuary states rewrite federal law. It's not going to happen. Not after restoring peace abroad, not after securing the border, and definitely not after millions of Americans demanded law, order, and accountability at the ballot box, right? So here's what's already on the table inside the Trump administration. Number one, federal pressure on sanctuary cities, all right? So Trump's team is reportedly drafting new executive orders that would allow the federal government to withhold billions of dollars in federal funding from any city or state that uses taxpayer dollars to obstruct lawful deportation, right? So that means Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, they're all on the chopping block if they continue this resistance. The second thing is expansion of federal immigration enforcement. We're talking ICE, Border Patrol, and the DOJ. They're expected to be granted expanded legal authority to override local interference. So this includes emergency jurisdiction in declared sanctuary zones. This is something that we haven't seen since post 9/11. Also, stripping legal loopholes. Trump is pushing for congressional support to end birthright benefits for children who were born to non-citizens, block ID-based voting access to sanctuary states, and bar any federal funding for illegal resident housing subsidies. So in other words, this is becoming a direct clash between the rule of law and state-level rebellion. And here's the irony. For years, Democrats said Trump was dividing the country, but now the only division left is the division between lawless enclaves trying to survive off of taxpayer-funded legality, and the rest of the nation, that's finally breathing free again. And so that's where you come in, because whether you live in California or not, this affects you, your tax dollars, your federal programs, your national security. They're all impacted when states like California choose to go rogue. Trump's doing his part, ending nuclear threats, restoring border integrity, and putting America first. But if we really want to finish this to restore national unity, not through force, but through truth and accountability, we need to expose what is happening. So we need you to speak up. We need you to vote. And we need you to stand behind the only administration that's willing to pull the country back from the edge. So I'm going to leave you with this. While Trump is stabilizing the world, California is destabilizing the republic. This isn't just a sanctuary issue. It's really a constitutional issue. And I think it is time that we treat it like one. So hit the like button, share, comment down below. What do you think should happen to sanctuary cities that are defying federal law? What do you think should happen to them? Should Trump pull their funding? Should ICE take over enforcement? Or should voters in those states hold their own leaders accountable? Let me know down below, because guys, all I can say is that this fight is just getting started. We'll see you next time.